Welcome, everybody, to the Beards and Bible podcast where we talk Bible, beards, and everything in between. My name's Josh. I'm joined today by my good buddy Gabe. Gabe, how you doing today, man?
Doing great. I think my office is the overflow room for when we have company come. The guinea pigs, their cage, we have 2 guinea pigs that are like 6 years old each. I don't know how they're still alive. They're just riddled with tumors and blindness. I'm not joking.
I think you're running like a hospice center for guinea pigs in your
So when we have,
actually.
Whenever we have company come over, the guinea pigs get moved into my office. And so they've been in my office for 2 days, just kind of filling, all the permeable things in my office with the smell of guinea pig hay and poop and urine, and just delightful. Terrible. Just come in here, so I'm taking in shallow breaths. So if I look a little lightheaded, that's because I'm not breathing very deep because of the smell of little guinea pig pellets, and they're out now. They're not in here, yeah.
But the smell still lingers. I guess when you're a guinea pig and you're dying, that's kind of the smell you give. So
yeah, just the tumors oozing.
Yeah, that's not. You don't have like sinus congestion or anything like that. You're just the guinea pig. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
How are you doing?
Man, I'm good. We were talking before we started recording. I've had a crazy busy day, so I'm getting a lunch break to just hop on and record is much needed. So,
yeah.
But I am back in my office. If you're watching on YouTube, I've been recording from the closet a couple of episodes while my office was getting renovated, but we have expanded our bathrooms and my office got a facelift as well. So here we go. Feels nice to have a place to work again instead of just working from the closet. All sorts of jokes you can make there. Finally coming out of the closet.
Scandal. Beards
Yes.
and Bible co-host.
Is uncloseted no more.
Major announcement.
Yes. So
mercy.
Do you guys? So we got a ton of snow and a ton of frozen weather. You guys also had a little bit of that, or no?
We had like 2 inches of snow. Yeah.
Okay.
Which is crazy that 2 years in a row we've had snow. That is. I told Stacey last year when we had snow, she's like, maybe it'll happen again next year. Maybe we'll just get 1 day of snow. And I was like, if it happens, rest assured, the world is ending. And then I woke up that morning and look out the window and I see that there's flurries falling. And it snowed for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And then we had about 2 inches that stuck around. I was like, wow. And then it snowed a third time a couple weeks later. I was actually on my way up to central Alabama, Wetumpka, Alabama, to go deer hunting with the 3 older boys. Yeah. And we drove through 3 different snowstorms.
Oh, my goodness.
It was bizarre. Yeah. I've never driven through snow before.
That's crazy. Well, tell me about hunting. That was like a first for you, right?
Not a first for me. I'm still yet to shoot a deer.
Okay.
I'm still a deer shooting virgin. But yeah, 2 of the 3 boys that I brought with me each shot a buck. So I thought that was really good. But Micah and Elijah. Man. Yeah.
Wow.
Eli got his, we all split up into different shooting houses. And Eli had a buck walk out in his food plot within the first 30 minutes of getting to the shooting house. And then Micah, who I was with, he had 2 bucks walk out in his plot with about 20 minutes left to spare before we had to get out, before it was last light. And he had a 10-point and a 5-point walkout. And the 10-point, I think he caught wind of us a little bit. He was acting kind of spooked. He turned around and walked back to the tree line as he was setting up the shot. And the 5-point just stayed there. So he took the 5-point.
Nice.
Yeah. Both good kills. And yeah, they're at the processor right now getting sliced and diced.
That is awesome, man.
Yeah.
Does it feel good to know that you've got fresh venison coming to your freezer very soon?
Yeah, it does. Feels good to know I'm raising men.
You sent me pictures and they had blood on their face. Did you? Is this a war paint requirement?
Yeah. That's, I guess the tradition is you put blood on your face with your first kill. Did you do that? Do you not know anything about that?
No, I did not. I did not know that was a tradition. So,
and I guess really okay.
I will do that with my sons when they get their first kill.
But I guess there's a tradition if you take your first shot at a deer and you miss that shot, then you cut a piece of your shirt off. Have you heard of
Oh,
that
really?
tradition? Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. My first shot at a deer killed the deer, so
Okay. You
and it
wouldn't
was with
know.
a slingshot too.
Nice.
No, just kidding. That's not
Yeah.
true. Well, that's awesome, man. I'm really excited for the day when I can share that with my boys. Aiden has gone out with me several times. He loves
Hmm.
going out with me, but we're still working on his uh, marksmanship. So
Hmm.
he's not quite comfortable with a high caliber rifle yet, but we're working on it. So we've got a 22 with a scope. So this year we're trying to get him comfortable with the scope, and then once we get him comfortable with the scope, we'll move up to a higher powered rifle. So
It's
excited about
awesome.
that. What kind of rifle did you use with your boys?
They were both 243s.
Okay, that's a
Yeah.
good round.
Yeah.
Not much
They're
recoil
both
on it. So
about 75 yards, and I think Eli's was about 100 and some change out.
oh wow,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, effective range on those 243s is a lot longer than most people think it is.
Really.
Yeah, because I mean they're smaller,
Hmm.
but I hunt with a 243. I've taken a deer at about 150 with that.
Mm.
So yeah,
Yeah. That's what they said. They were saying, don't. Basically, they build all these food plots to be max of like 150 yards, and they were like, don't shoot at anything if it leaves the food plot because you're going to
yeah,
struggle with range and stuff.
oh for sure. Oh, that's great, man.
Yeah.
Well, I sent you this article that we're going to talk about today. Um, I found it fascinating. We've done podcast episodes about this before. This is from a guy named Kerry Newhoff. He has a podcast and runs a blog, and a lot of stuff that he writes about and podcasts about are just different trends and research that affects just the church and so we've done this before. I think we do this last year and the year before, or just
Hmm.
last year.
Yeah. It sounds familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, but I thought some of this research was absolutely fascinating. And if you get a chance, if you're listening to this and you're interested in it, you can go on his website, carrynewhoff.com, and read this article, 7 Disruptive Church Trends That Will Rule 2026. And he works with the Barna Group a lot. So the
Hmm.
Barna Group does a lot of research and um, surveying and stuff to kind of just see what's happening in the spiritual landscape of America. And so I thought today we just kind of talk through it, and I'd love to, Gabe, hear your thoughts on this and maybe just unpack it together and just kind of see, hey, what does this mean for us as pastors, and what does this mean for people just as Christians here in the U.S. And I know we have some international listeners, so a lot of this is U.S., but again, we have reason to believe that some of this is also the U.K. and in pretty much anywhere in the West. So Australia, UK, Canada. So thought it might be interesting to unpack it. But Gabe, is there anything about this report that just right off the get go just was really shocking and surprising to you that you were like, "Whoa, didn't realize that"?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the seventh trend, the AI, how it's going to shape ministry
Mm,
and leadership. I knew stuff was coming down the pipeline. We really can't imagine, but yeah, it's gonna be interesting. The next 5 or 10 years are going to really be direction changing when it comes to how we approach it, how we utilize it. Do we utilize it? So
yeah, no, I feel like
yeah.
AI is one that I've had a lot of conversations recently, and a lot of that has been inspired by people who send me texts or emails about critical spiritual issues, and I could tell they're AI generated.
Yeah.
Do you ever get that? Do you ever get emails, texts, or anything like that? And you're like, clearly you didn't through this
Yeah.
or pray through this or research biblically any of this. You just threw it into a
Yeah.
AI and it
Or
threw up a
like
prompt. And,
a AI generated YouTube video of like Muslims that are burning Bibles behind the Atlanta airport, stuff
oh,
like that.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely going to just really, and we'll get into this when we get to the seventh point, but it's going to be really challenging to have discernment
Hmm.
and practice that spiritual discipline for sure. But trend one, which as I was listening to it this morning, the podcast is like, that was really surprising. The fact that Gen Z is leading in a surge in church attendance. I
Yeah.
was really shocked by that
Yeah.
because I thought it was the opposite.
Yeah. No, that's a super interesting one. Yeah. So that's the first trend. But before we get into that first trend, I think one of the things that he pointed out too in the article, and this is something we said in um, the bumper of this episode, is the fact that America is becoming less Christian, but at the same time, there's like a mini revival going on. So it's like we're becoming less Christian overall, but then there's other stuff that's happening. So here's some data points that is really interesting. 74% of Christians in the year 2000 said faith was central to their life. Today, only 54% of Christians would say faith is central to their life, which is super interesting. So that means 46% of people who profess Christ and would say they're Christian would say that their faith is not central to their lives, which is super interesting. 48% of U.S. adults who identify as Christian are non-practicing Christians. So that means only 24% of self-reported Christians are actively pursuing their faith, which just shows us, I think, something about cultural Christianity right now, which is super interesting. So that's kind of discouraging. That's kind of sobering to go, oh my gosh, like that's crazy. But at the exact same time, here's other trends. Bible sales is up by 41.6% since the year 2022. Spiritual app downloads is up by 79% since 2022. Christian music is up 50% in terms of streams of Christian music. And people who have said they have professed personal commitments to Jesus is up 12 percentage points since 2022. So that's pretty crazy. That's pretty interesting. What do you make of that? The whole, it's declining, but then it's going up. And what does that mean to you?
I think in the podcast, he said that it seems like people have explored what the world has to offer, what the culture has to offer. And now they're in this season of almost like desperation for answers.
Yeah.
Like the pendulum is now swinging back the other way. They're looking for meaning and direction in their life in places that offer that. So, but it's also kind of a picture of like a refinement, maybe. You have people who are not as serious about their faith, they just culturally identified. They're kind of falling by the wayside. Those numbers are tapering off. But you have people who are really serious, who are getting more serious in their faith. Perhaps, I don't know.
Do you think this explains why there are so many people who would say they're Christians, but if you really start pressing them for what that means to them, it's kind of just Christian by name only? Like we kind of talked about that in the last podcast, the two Americas. Like for them, it's kind of like, well, I'm a Christian because Jesus said some really cool things and I try to follow those. It's kind of like, well, is that all it means to be a Christian? Right. And so it's truly not a main central part of their lives. It's just kind of like, if I had to pick a group to identify with, it would be Christian. I mean, do you think that's fair to say that a lot of people in our country, that's kind of how they view it?
Yeah, like the Rhett McLaughlins out there who deconstruct and then partially reconstruct their faith, and they say, well, I don't believe some of the main theological teachings and claims of the New Testament about Jesus, but I do appreciate his role modelship and leadership and moral teachings.
Yeah. So that would be like peripheral faith, like I'm a Christian, but it's not really that important to me, right? What do you think it means for when somebody says, no, my faith is important to me, it's central, I'm a practicing Christian? Is that a Christian that goes to church, or, I mean, is that something more than that, you think?
Something more than that, yeah. I think a practicing Christian should be actively looking for real life engagement and community, and a place to be held accountable, a place to serve and to give. But no, that's not the be all end all, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
So a lot of this podcast was focused on measuring church attendance, measuring real people going to real places, physical places. And one could say, well, that's too hyper focused on something that's just it's a tenet of our faith, but it's not the main tenet of our faith.
Right.
And I mean, understood, but it is a very visible barometer, I would say, of the interest human beings, because humans are going to give of their time of something they believe in, whether that's football or karate or watching a television show. When you see a person give of their time to do something repeatedly, going to the gym, that means they believe in the potential outcome of that product, or the potential change that product has to offer. So I think it's interesting. It's not a be all end all barometer of the spiritual health of a certain demographic, but it is telling, I would say.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like if you're a demographics researcher, what else do you have to go on other than just self-reporting, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's I think probably the most telling data point in terms of, is it important to you? Okay. If it's important to you, are you doing anything about it? Right. And so the most obvious thing you could do about it is, okay, or do you attend a worship gathering? Speaking of which, that kind of leads us to our first trend, and you mentioned it earlier. Gen Z is leading the surge in church attendance, which is crazy. So here is the sad reality of what regular church attendance looks like in America right now. The average church attendee in America attends church 1.6 times per month. So that's average. Which that's kind of sad. Do you think that's sad? I think that's disappointing.
Yeah. I'd say that's somewhat disappointing. And I think the concern here is for listeners to think, oh, okay, what we're doing, Josh, you and I, what we're doing is we're brainstorming on how to raise these numbers because we have visions and bills and all these things that we want to pay for using the money of these attendees. And sure, those people do exist. I'm sure pastors or leaders out there in the ministry do think about those sorts of things of how do they get more bodies in to get more offering and tithes and stuff so they could fund different things. But I think this 1.9 times per month is telling because it's saying these people are coming less than half the month, and they're subjecting themselves to the potential for other in-person relationships and accountability, which is a good thing. And so I think really good pastors and church leaders look at these numbers and say, how can we raise this? Not obviously to raise our budget or our offering tithes, but how do we raise us to change a generation and influence a generation through the potential of increased accountability and in-person worship and servitude of that person to the community around them?
100%. Yeah. So the average is 1.6 for all U.S. church adults, and leading the pack in average church attending per month is Gen Z, and that is 1.9 times a month. So millennials are just right behind them, 1.8 times a month. Gen X is 1.6 times per month. And then the boomers and the elders, who historically have always led the charge in regular church attendance, are attending 1.4 times per month. Is that crazy? That's really crazy to look at. But the most remarkable data point is that Gen Z's attendance has doubled since 2021. And in the UK, 18 to 24-year-olds, their attendance rose from 4% to 16% in 8 years. So that's like they quadrupled, which is crazy. So you said earlier that, and he writes this on the blog, just that there's probably this thing where the younger generation has tried what the world has to offer and then gone, yeah, no thanks. There's got to be something more. And so that's maybe why they're coming back to church. Do you think that this is a trend that is going to stick? I mean, or do you think this is just sort of a flash in the pan reaction to the hyper liberalism in some places, and then it's going to settle down? I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I know obviously you can't read the future. But.
Yeah, no idea. Gen Z is a very interesting generation. I'm raising kids that are Gen Z, and they're unpredictable in a good way. But definitely have a big heart. Definitely sense a need for transcendence and longing. So who knows, man?
Yeah.
A lot of potential in that generation, though.
Okay, so we talked about this before, especially on our podcast episodes where people have asked us this about so many of the younger generation going to Roman Catholicism and Orthodox. So at the risk of inciting a riot from our ortho bros who listen, why is it that that's the one, those traditions are the ones that it seems like Gen Z is super interested in?
man, because I think largely because of evangelical Christianity in the United States of America has, I think we talked about this a week or two ago, or past couple of episodes. It's presented itself to be doctrinally shallow,
Yeah.
untethered to anything old, traditional. It feels unsafe. It feels like it's constantly changing. And rightly so. I think those are valid points. Those are valid concerns.
Yeah.
And so I think they look at and they look at the evangelical church in the United States of America as being always willing to reinvent itself to be relevant. But I think Gen Zers are not looking for relevance right now. I think they're looking for, like I said, something that is deeply meaningful, transformative, and of value. They're willing to take their
Right.
time to go to something and to listen to something and be around something. They want it to be something that is impactful, that is meaningful,
Sure.
and understandably so.
Yeah, I think there's a reaction against like a glut of online content, but perhaps maybe not a lot of wisdom or a lot of like face to face encounter with other people. Like it's just content, 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 content. And they're going, well, yeah, but I could get content on a screen, but like I want to go someplace where I actually connect with people and I connect with God. And so I think that's probably what they're looking for and they're reaching for. My hope and my prayer is that the church kind of rises to the occasion and we offer them something real, like
Mm-hmm.
substance, right? Not just novelty. All right. So second trend, young men are coming to church and women are leaving too, which is kind of bizarre. In the early 2000s, there was a book written called Why Men Hate Coming to Church. And it has always been just a expected thing that women are better at going to church on a more regular basis than men. And now, for the first time in 25 years, pollsters are seeing that that is completely reversed, which is really, really crazy to see. Young men are showing a higher engagement than young women in prayer, reading the scripture, and going to church. And the steepest decline among women is young women in their college years. And so this is really surprising. This is unprecedented. We've never seen this before as long as pollsters have been measuring this data point. And so this is really, I don't know, it's kind of odd. So Gabe, what do you make of this trend? This is kind of a bizarre one.
Yeah, it is super surprising. I would think the opposite. I would assume the opposite. Yeah, I think the guy in the podcast talked about how modern popular culture has kind of pigeonholed men into these kind of like goofballs, kind of like, low IQ, not strong leaders, and that's I think that's true. Like a lot of television shows and a lot of music and stuff has portrayed men that way, and maybe this is
just
kind
the
of
bro.
Yeah, just kind of like who's the guy from Family Guy, Peter. The dad from Family Guy,
Peter Griffin.
Peter Griffin. Yeah, just like just kind of that's
true.
popular culture, what a man should be. So maybe this is kind of a bounce back from that, a resurgence of like, no, that's not who we are, and I have no idea though. That's super surprising.
Yeah, somebody sent me. I think it was one of my brothers sent me another graph that showed the disconnect ideologically between young men and young women. That by and large, young men are swinging more conservative ideologically, and by and large, young women are swinging more liberal ideologically. And so, if that's true, it would make sense if young women are swinging more liberal ideologically, then the Christian faith would not be as appealing to them, or at least the practice of the Christian faith would not be as appealing to them.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I mean, it's just kind of a weird thing for us. I mean, we're two dudes. You've got 4 boys. I've got 2 boys. But I do have a daughter. And so like this is kind of concerning. I mean, the thought that there's a lot of young women that think that church doesn't have anything to offer them. I don't know. It's kind of a bizarre thing to ask. Like, how do we, because here's what I've heard for the past 25 years, the church is too feminine. The church is too feminine. The church is too feminine. Like we're just singing prom songs to Jesus. We do worship and everything's feminine. We got to make it for the men.
Right.
Well, I mean, mission accomplished. I think we've kind of done that, right? So now it's like, what's going on to where the women are leaving? Why is that happening? And how do we get them back? Like what is it about the way that we're doing things that's resonating with men, but it's alienating women? Like what's going on with that?
A really valid point he made was the sexual scandals that take place in churches that are usually, he talked about, the Me Too kind of movement, and maybe we're seeing the decline of women being engaged in churches as a result of some of those scandals, some of those movements, and them kind of having this visceral reaction to not want to be under the leadership and authority of a man because they have the potential to do that to me. So I guess maybe a lack of trust, but I think it's a valid point.
Yeah. Another thing mentioned was the fact that women have unprecedented ability now to rise up in positions of leadership in companies, in politics, right? The one place where they can't is in church, or at least they're being told they can't, right? And so that's a whole nother theological ball of wax in terms of women in leadership within the church. But I think theological issues notwithstanding, the churches that have built a culture on women's job within the church is to sit down and shut up and let the men do all the heavy lifting, right? I think women are getting that message loud and clear and saying, yeah, we can see we're not welcome. No thanks, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of an interesting, like, how do we honor what the Bible gives us in terms of gender roles within leadership, however somebody falls on that, but at the same time recognize and celebrate the role that women can play within ministry in the church without just being chauvinistic and misogynistic, right? So that's a tricky one.
It's almost like the society around us is moving in a direction of feminism, egalitarianism in terms of gender equality and everything in the workplace and the culture, whereas the church is, in some respects, right or wrong. That's not what I'm trying to establish right now, but it's lagging behind. Or it's not moving at all. And so I think maybe a lot of women in modern culture surrounded by modernity and Western civilization, that just the feminist influenced culture around us are saying, wait a second, that's lagging too far behind my expectations. So maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. And I'm not saying right or wrong. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that it's probably something to do with it.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think one thing that we can probably do is that, I think we talked about this last episode, like women tend to be higher on the empathy scale than men are.
Sure.
And I think because the church has felt like over the course of the last 5 to 6 years that the church has basically had to say in the US and other places, hey, we're going to take a stand for truth and we're going to stop being apologetic for it. In some ways, I think we have done that at the expense of being compassionate and empathetic. And I think women are probably going to sniff that out a lot more than men are, right? Men are probably going to, hey man, you call it, and women are probably going to sniff that out and go, yeah, but like, you're not being Christ-like at all. Like you're not being kind. You're not being generous. You're not being merciful. You're not being Jesus-like, right? And so I wonder if we could probably notice and recognize that and maybe soften our approach a little bit, even as we're taking a stand for truth. I don't know. That's a thought. I mean, I don't know. It's so funny though that this data point basically is flying in the face of that narrative, churches for women.
Yeah.
So everything we've been saying to ourselves over the past 25 years, especially bro Christianity, the data is showing the opposite. So it's like,
I know there's a lot of ministry that has sprung up in the past 15 to 20 years that are geared towards, man church. Like I know Rick and Bubba have man church, and there's all these bro ministry kind of things. You get together and do like a boot camp, and they spray you in the face with the hose and all this stuff. And make you an alpha Christian male. There's a lot of things that are like that, and maybe there's a resurgence due to all these different ministries that are geared towards men's conferences. Well, then again, in the 80s and 90s, there was like Promise Keepers and all these big men's ministries, and
yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe it's not really the case. I don't know.
Maybe we should probably have a woman on the podcast and ask her about it, because I feel like us trying to sit here and mansplain why we're not reaching women in the ways that we could is probably not as helpful. So if you're a woman listening to this and maybe you've got an idea of why you think the Christian faith is becoming less appealing to women and how we can change that, we'd love to hear from you. But to me personally, this is the most fascinating data that this report gives us. And that's a trend that I hope we see reversed, but that's just a really fascinating, interesting thought to think through. So any more to say about that? About women's?
Mm-mm.
Women's. Trend number 3. Evangelism is becoming bolder and more direct. I'm just going to read straight from the article because I thought this was really helpful. For years, churches viewed evangelism as hosting weekend services where people could invite friends. Christians saw their role as building relationships with unchurched friends, sharing their faith, and bringing them to church. The challenge with this model is that many Christians never invite anyone to church. Despite the astonishing reality that 80% of non-churchgoers say they would come to church if somebody invited them. Enter the next generation and rise in bolder, more direct evangelism. And so there's a lot about kind of growth in campus evangelism, street preaching, and online evangelists that are sharing the gospel pretty directly. So guys like Wes Huff, you and I have talked about him before on the podcast, Ruslan KD, Bryce Crawford, even mentions Charlie Kirk, to some extent, Forrest Frank, and how he's shared the gospel directly on YouTube. It just kind of seems like the younger generation is responding better to just Christians just straight up giving the gospel without having to sugarcoat it with this sort of attractional model. Hey, come to church. There's going to be monster trucks and fireworks, and we're giving away iPads. It's like, no, who's Jesus, right?
Yeah.
So, do you agree with that? Have you noticed that? Is that a trend that you've seen as well?
Personally, I haven't, but I'm not saying it doesn't exist. But I get the feeling with Gen Zers, even some younger millennials, that it's a very reactionary kind of generation where they see a certain trend going one direction, or they see something. And I think we see, like, especially in a political landscape in America, or even culturally speaking, this apprehension to speak bluntly, apprehension to speak plain truth, a fear of being offensive, and sounding like a bully. And we see, especially in the political landscape, a lot of politicians be fake nice or fake this or fake that, just to not sound super inclusive. And so I wonder if this is almost a reaction of like, hey, let's get away from that and just tell me what's really on your mind. Just tell me the truth. Right. I want something real. Yeah. Even if it's moderately offensive, just tell me something real. But I don't know. Yeah, it's so hard to pin down because, man, the age of the internet and everything's changing so rapidly, and I just don't. Yeah, I don't know what could cause this.
Yeah, I mean, I think this may be a rabbit trail, but it may be connected. I think of the difference in the presidential campaigns in 2024, right? So, right, wrong, or indifferent, the criticism that was often levied against Kamala Harris is that she would give what they called nothing burger answers when they asked her about tough questions, right? That she was afraid of saying the wrong thing, and so she actually just didn't say much of anything. And I wonder if Christians have been guilty of doing that for a long time.
Yeah.
Like we're afraid of saying the wrong thing, so we're giving nothing burger answers.
Yeah.
to things that, like, kids and the younger generation and anybody really is basically like, hey, do you guys believe in hell? Do you believe in judgment? What happens
Yeah.
to me if I don't trust in Christ? Like, is Jesus the only way? And so many times we're so scared of saying the
Mm-hmm.
wrong
Mm-hmm.
thing and offending people that we end up saying nothing, and it's not helpful for anybody,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I think that directness feels really refreshing in an age saturated with ambiguity and irony,
Yeah. Yeah. And fear.
where people are, yeah,
People are actually showing courage and principle in an age
hmm
when neither are um, easy to find. So
sure.
that could be a factor for sure.
Yeah, and I wonder how much Charlie Kirk and the, I guess, renewed interest in Charlie Kirk after he was assassinated has to play into that. I mean, because he,
Mm-hmm.
right, wrong, or indifferent, whatever you think about Charlie Kirk, he said what he felt was true,
Mm-hmm.
and he wasn't apologetic about it, right? And I think that's probably why that message resonated with so many people, because of how direct he was, right? So, why is it you think that that kind of clarity feels more loving and attractional than people being subtle or ironic or cool or contextual right now?
Mm-hmm. I think I want to say the majority of people can sense insincerity. So yeah, when you have people like Kamala Harris giving those nothing burger answers just because they're scared of offending someone or scared of actually showing principle and then offending people because you have a principle on something, I think people can sense that and they want someone. Hey, I just want to know where you stand on this, and don't give me this nothing burger answer like you said. Show me where you're at and whatever. Come what may. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, no, same thing. I think
If it,
people right now have so many different voices out there.
mm-hmm.
So it's like, man, I can take it or leave it. Just tell me what you really think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so many voices out there. It's really important just to know what yours is. What's your stance? What are you actually saying, right? So I think that should be encouraging to us as believers, that maybe it lifts the pressure off of us. You don't have to be as eloquent as maybe you think you have to be.
Mm-hmm.
You can just straight up speak the truth of the gospel when you're presenting it to people, and they can take it or leave it, right?
Yeah.
And that's a kind of a crazy trend. 80% of non-Christians say they would go to church if somebody invited them, but nobody's ever invited them.
Mm.
So if you're afraid of inviting somebody to church and you're thinking, well, they never say yes. Well, according to the research, 80% of them would. They've never been asked, right?
Well, yeah.
So yeah, trend number 4, preaching is shifting from presentation to encounter. I had a hard time understanding what exactly he meant by this until I really started digging into it. Basically, we live in the most information saturated age there ever has been.
Mm.
There is absolutely no shortage of content out there. Anything that you want to find about anything, any sermon from any church in the world, you can look it up on YouTube, and within 2 minutes, you can find any sermon about anything, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So content is really, really abundant, and we're living in a content saturated age. What is missing is community and meaning.
Mm.
And so what's missing is emotional, spiritual, and relational engagement from people's lives. The problem is there are some churches that haven't got the memo. They're still focusing primarily on a presentation of information instead of facilitating a relational encounter with other people and with the presence of God. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. How that plays out practically, I'm not quite sure. Other than
Yeah.
You're so in tune with the needs, I guess we could say dietary needs, quote unquote, of the flock that you're shepherding, that what you're speaking is clearly inspired by the Holy Spirit, that, that message is for them in that moment, right then and there. And maybe that's the encounter. For me personally, at the end of every time I teach, speak, give a sermon, I always reserve, and this is only doable with smaller crowds, obviously, but I always reserve 10 to 15 minutes to allow people to ask questions. And this is something that's risky.
Sure.
But like we did, I taught on New Age spirituality last weekend, and allowed people, 15 minutes at the end of it to just ask questions. I had so many hands fly up. And I always say, I'm not going to know all the answers to these questions, but I could do my best to try to get you the answers. So many hands fly up, people just saying, wow, thank you for clarifying these things. I can see, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to take 2 more questions. And I took those 2 questions, and then we're going to go ahead and close in prayer. And I took the 2 more questions, and I was like, does anybody else have a question? I forgot that I said I'm going to take 2 more questions, and like 4 more hands shot up, and I could just see there's a deep hunger. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I forgot that, I'm going to cut it off here. But there's a deep hunger in people for just that engagement with someone on that level of, hey, I want to know more about this topic, and I want to ask these questions to someone. I don't know. Maybe that's an encounter, like, especially if you're having like a youth group or a small group.
Sure.
I think kind of assessing where the curiosity lies of the people that you're trying to shepherd, and what are they, what are they taking away from this, and what are they learning from this, and kind of recapping, almost like a teacher level kind of vibe of like, hey, let's talk about what I just talked about. And that's a cool engaging.
Absolutely. No, I'd say that's 100% what people are hungry for right now. Right. Because you can't, you can go online and you can watch a lecture by Jordan Peterson, right? But being able to be in the room with him and ask him questions, you're not able to do that just from watching it online. So even though, not every church can do it that way, right? I think churches can create environments to facilitate relational and spiritual engagement. Yeah. Whether it's in a class or a small group, or even a weekend service. Our weekend services always end with communion and a time of prayer, and inviting people to come get prayer and to come ask questions if they've got them, but I think that has to become more central in our worship gatherings, that we're not just going for like a TED Talk for Jesus, right? That somebody's going because they want to have an encounter with the living God. And they want to have a face-to-face engagement with real, actual people. And we're going to talk about AI here in a minute, but that's what we're going to really have to focus on as we move into the age of AI, is embodied human beings that display the image of God, because we're going to be in a critical absence of that as we move into the AI generation in the years to come.
Yeah. You mentioned communion. One of the things we do every single time after every single service is we have lunch together. Everyone brings a potluck meal they can share. And it is a mess, man. Like, it is a lot of work to have to clean up. You have people that are washing dishes. You have people that are picking up plates that are left behind and taking out trash. It's just a big mess. And, it's only like 100 people that we're feeding every week, but it's like, it's been the number one thing to bring people together and to get people to sit on the other side of the table from one another and talk and get to know each other. And we're very, very tight knit, 100 people or so, because of that, that you have that encounter and you have that time. So many churches, and for different reasons and valid reasons even, but like so many churches, like as soon as that closing prayer is done, it's just like the parking lot just goes down.
Yep.
And that's nice in some ways. It's easy, it's clean, but at the same time, it's hard to find the time and space to force people to get together. But when people are hungry and people are like, hey, might as well stick around and eat, especially for new people, it gives you a chance to kind of make the rounds and talk to people, or make sure, hey, would you mind inviting that new person to come sit at your table and eat lunch with them? And so it's kind of slows things down a little bit and makes that personal encounter experience too a little bit. But so if you're listening to this and you have a group that's small enough, maybe you just run a single service like we do, and you could pull it off maybe just once a month or so, definitely try that and see if it's effective.
Yeah, that's so good, man. I miss the days when we were able to do that.
Yeah.
We try really hard within our small groups to create those environments, but I think that's the hardest thing about us. Just as we grow with numbers on a Sunday morning and a Saturday night, is just trying to figure out the best way to
harbor that.
create it to where when service ends, it's not like a Southwest flight. Everybody's just trying to get off the plane as quickly as possible, and
beat the Baptist too.
And yeah, exactly.
The buffet.
But I mean, one of the most, like, one of my favorite parts of Sunday is after a service, there's like about half the room that just lingers for 20, 30 minutes, just hanging out, talking.
Yeah.
Connecting. And I love just like getting a cup of coffee and just lingering and walking around. And that's like, you can't get that from YouTube, right?
Right.
And so I think that preaching is having to kind of shift more into meeting people where they're at and becoming more relational.
Yeah.
Not just a lecture, right? And it's because, again, we're information saturated, but we're relationally low. And honestly, there is an invitation, I think, for the church now to become more spirit filled. Don't want to get too charismatic-y, but the manifest presence of the Holy Spirit within our midst as we gather as believers is something you can't get from a YouTube video, right?
Yeah.
And so nights of prayer, nights of worship, prayer gatherings, creating space at the end of service for people to receive prayer. And I think that's going to become the needed and necessary shift for us to become more supernatural, I guess I can use that word, right? And less mechanical and less secular in how we present church. So, shall we move on to the next one?
Sure.
Trend number 5, discipleship is increasingly shaped by algorithms. What was your guess before you read this blog of the average screen time per week for most folks? What was your guess?
20 hours. I don't know.
That was, I would
30
never
tops,
have guessed. Yeah. So the average screen time for most Americans today is 49 hours per week. That's insane.
It is.
That averages out to 7 hours a day.
Wow.
So here's what this, I know, that's crazy. So here's what this means. If our average screen time is 49 hours per week, and 27% of evangelicals, not just people who profess to be Christians, evangelicals, rarely or never attend church, then it is the digital content that is shaping their beliefs far more consistently than their church community. Because like if you're binging 49 hours a week of Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and Michael Knowles and Joe Rogan, right?
Yeah.
And that's like, I mean, every day at your job, you're putting in your AirPods and you're, podcasting up. And then you go hear your pastor preach for 35, 45 minutes once a week. And then you go into a small group for an hour and a half. Are you serious? Like who's going to shape you as a disciple?
Yeah.
So formation is happening constantly, but here's the problem, because we talked about this last episode, because we're algorithmically being engaged. So if you're on a YouTube app or your Facebook or your Twitter or whatever, the algorithm is basically just feeding you what it knows that you're wanting to see next. So you are getting shaped more and more and more into a radicalized version of whatever you were before you started getting radicalized. I don't know if that makes sense to say it that way or not, but
well, like running marathons, like I didn't have any interest in running marathons until I really believe that it was something that an algorithm showed me, and then it kind of continued to feed me. But it was something it was like a small grain of a desire in me to want to do those kinds of things, and then algorithms kind of like pushed me and influenced my behavior. Fortunately, it was for a healthy a healthy thing, but kind of discipled me to come outside my comfort zone and to try something. But yeah, I would say absolutely I was influenced by social media and different things that started feeding me as I liked them, as it probably monitored my movement and my activity. Saw, okay, wow, he's taking the bait on this. Feed him more content. He's buying things that are in line with this. So yeah, I think we see, that's what discipleship is that it's influencing, it's changing your worldview. It's changing your pattern of behaviors, where you spend your time, where you spend your money. That's what discipleship is. And yeah, I think we, as the people who claim to be disciplers of people, need to be aware of the fact that there is this, people are gorging themselves on information fed to them by algorithms throughout the entire week. And then we get up, like he talked about in the article, we get up for 30 to 45 minutes and give a sermon and expect that to have an impact that's greater than what they are consuming throughout the week. And we're kidding ourselves if we think that.
Right. Yeah. And, I think one of the things that we've talked about too on this podcast is because of that effect of people getting constantly shaped more by their algorithms than they are by their local church. Mm-hmm. No matter what a pastor says about a key cultural issue, mm-hmm. they're never going to get it right.
It's going to be drowned out.
Because they're going to say something about, case in point, the Charlie Kirk assassination happened, mm-hmm. and pastors got up and felt led to say something the Sunday after. But no matter what they said, to some people it was way too liberal, to some people mm-hmm. it was way too conservative, to some people it was way too partisan, mm-hmm. whatever, right? It's because in the days leading up to hearing their pastor say whatever that pastor felt led to say, they had heard every hot take about it from every single mm-hmm. commentator that the algorithm fed them. And so it's kind of like, well, I've already heard the way to say it or the way that I'd want it to be said. So let's see what, Pastor so-and-so says. And, he didn't do it right. It's like, man, how do you compete with that? Or can you compete with that as a pastor? Or is that our job to try to compete with it?
Man, I don't know the answer to that. Yeah, I think it's our job just to speak truth, and to speak the gospel, to teach the word of God, and not try to compete with something we're not called to compete with. But at the same time, I think we are supposed to be cognizant of that. But yeah, I think we get like the Charlie Kirk thing, for instance. It took just probably 48 hours for there to be these narrative tribes that developed over how did it happen, who did it, was it a conspiracy, was it not a conspiracy, should we talk about it, should we not talk about it, was he a good person, was he not a good person, all these different splittings of these narratives into different very emotionally charged tribes, so that by the time Sunday came around and a pastor got to talk about it or didn't talk about it, he was just, it was a lose-lose in some situations, right, to some people. And that's with any big thing in the news, any election cycle. That's the case. These amorphous, amoral algorithms are constantly informing and shaping our worldviews and competing, and are many times at odds with and tension with the worldview that we are trying to influence and lead people to, which is biblical truth.
Yeah, I think one of the things that was pointed out is you can try to grow your church by echoing a particular algorithm or extreme mm-hmm. point of view, right? You can become a MAGA church, right? You'll see short-term gains as a MAGA church, right? Or you can become a super woke church and see short-term gains, but ultimately, what are you really trying to do in doing that? Are you really trying to preach and proclaim the gospel to build up the kingdom, or are you just trying to throw out red meat to a certain audience so they'll amen everything you say and give you a platform, right? Mm-hmm. So I think really the answer is we have to be bold enough to not try to play the game of just giving our hot take about every cultural issue and trying to echo a certain algorithm. We've got to stay biblical and consistent in preaching the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to also stand up to people who try to bully us into using our platform to say what it is they want us to say.
Mm.
And that's probably the hardest part about it, because there's a lot of bullies that try to bully their pastor into saying things exactly how they wish that they would say it if they had their pastor's platform, but they don't. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a tough one, though. I think the boldness that might be required from pastors is to have enough backbone to say, I'm not going there. We're not going down that path. We're going to preach the gospel. We're going to talk about Jesus. We're going to preach against sin and preach repentance and preach salvation through Christ and Christ alone. Even as the whole world is going crazy with chasing down, hey, did you watch Bad Bunny in the Super Bowl? You shouldn't have. You should have watched Kid Rock instead. May his name be praised, right? Bow with the bow, the bang, diggy, diggy. He's actually speaking in tongues. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, Lord.
Can we talk about that for a second, or is that off limits?
I don't care. I didn't watch either, so I'm not super educated, but I'm curious to see where you take this.
Oh gosh, I'm afraid to say anything out loud because I'm afraid I'm gonna email one way or the other.
Just do it. Just do it.
Okay. All right. So I tuned into the Turning Point USA Super Bowl halftime show.
Okay.
It was the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
It was so cringy, man. Oh, it was so cringy.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be about faith, family, and freedom. And the opening entertainer sang the song, chilling on the dirt road, laid back, now smoke rolling out the window. And I'm like, whoa, hang on.
Wow.
Smoke rolling out the, what about that is faith, family, and freedom?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I love Jesus and smoking pot as I'm driving down with an open container. Like, what?
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't watch either one.
I didn't make it to Kid Rock. I turned it off before Kid Rock got up. But
yeah.
anyway. I don't know how we got off on Kid Rock. How did we get off on Kid Rock?
Bullying you into talking about something.
Oh,
yeah.
Preaching against Bad Bunny. Okay. Trend number 6. This is a very interesting one. Senior pastors are aging out and few are replacing them. So in 1992, the average pastor was 44 years old. Only 6% of pastors in 1992 were over the age of 65. And that is certainly not the case anymore. The average senior pastor age is 58.
Mm.
And so there are far more. I don't think the research listed how many are over the age of 65, but there's a lot more over the age of 65. And so we've got like 2 things happening. Fewer leaders are entering long-term pastoral roles. So the young people are not responding to the call to ministry. And the pastorate is just sort of getting older and older and older, and there's fewer younger leaders stepping up to replace them. And so that's kind of an interesting reality. Here's a crazy trend. 71% of leaders agree or someone agree that they're concerned with the quality of future Christian leaders. So it almost seems like the older generation is not really wanting to turn the keys over to the younger generation.
Interesting.
And so they're getting older and less of the younger generation is going into ministry. And that's a really sad reality. And I think it's a crisis going on. That is probably, there's probably a lot of things going on. I'm just going to read what the blog article said. This trend is not surprising given the amount of scandal in the church hurt, and the trauma associated with too much of Christian leadership. It's not hard to guess why the next generation isn't racing to embrace church leadership. Just as perplexing is the fact that many pastors today are reluctant to release leadership to anyone under the age of 40. A lot of today's leaders were given huge responsibility at age 23. For some reason, now that they're in their 50s and 60s, they won't trust the next generation the way someone once trusted them. there are also very selfish and practical reasons for not giving up ministry, all of which are fueling the crisis. And there's a link to another article. And I believe some of those reasons are a lot of pastors in their 50s and 60s don't have anything saved for retirement.
Wow.
So they're not wanting to hand the keys over to another generation because they feel like they can't, because they don't know what they're going to do that late in their career. So what do you think about this? This is an interesting one.
Yeah, man, that's tough. I'm just, I think you look at a pastor position as a career move. It's not a great one. And, we are putting a lot of emphasis these days on younger adults to pick a good career and plan for your future, or there's not a lot of emphasis such as on supernatural calling, on sacrificing everything to obey a calling, even if it's a horrible career path. So yeah, it's tough, man. There's things I think too that probably younger people get into pastoral ministry. Gosh, I think my dad, when he took his first church as a lead pastor, he was probably in his mid-20s. I cannot imagine doing that. I just cannot imagine how just the weight of that position on a 25, 26-year-old, newly married, the young kid. So I probably would see a high negative attrition rate in young people going into the ministry. Sure. So that's going to bring this average up, in terms of age, because pastors are probably hiring people with the hopes that they would replace them. A younger person has a lot of energy and charisma, and then they hit that first like real low point and discouragement, and then they just dip out, and they're like, well, okay, well, noob, why don't you stick around?
Right.
So yeah, maybe that's a thing too. I've seen that with my own eyes. That happen.
I think that there's an older generation of pastors that has spent a lot of time talking about how hard it is to be a pastor, and how not rewarding it is to be a pastor, and how hard they work, and this is a life of suffering. You don't make any money, and you're always on call, and it's terrible, and it's miserable, and it's awful. Yeah. And their kids and friends of their kids are looking and going, well, then why would I ever want to do that with my life?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of focusing on the joy and the beauties of what it means to serve the Lord in a vocational calling. So I think that's some of it too. I also think that we're just not discipling the current and next generation, and even our own generation, of what it means to be sacrificial and to give your life away for something like ministry. Yeah. So I think there's a side of it too. And I think really we're failing to train up leaders underneath us, just in general. I think that's like a way that we're failing right now, is we don't know how to train up the next generation. And we're really hesitant to hand them the keys because we don't give them permission to fail. And so we think it's got to be us hanging on to control the way we like things, instead of giving the younger generation permission to fail. So that's kind of going to lead in the upcoming years to a succession crisis. And some would say that succession crisis is already here, right? Yeah. Little churches are dying out because there's no pastors to step in and take the pulpit. So, I think we've got to figure that one out. I don't have any silver bullets for that, but I do think that there has to be a way in which we are truly changing the narrative about ministry. Instead of focusing on the negative aspects of it, we got to start talking about it as it is. It's a blessing. It's not an easy life, but it is a blessed life to be in full-time ministry. And I think we need to start challenging the younger generation to pray about a call to ministry. Yeah. And so trying to figure out which ones of them have a call to do ministry on their lives, and then helping them step into that, So, ready for the last one?
Yeah.
Last one is AI. The machines are coming for us. Come with me if you want to leave. That was the worst Arnold impersonation I've ever given.
The old SNL sketch with robot insurance.
Oh, yeah.
And they're all sitting around playing a board game, and the robots bust in and choke the one dude out.
Yeah. Yeah, so AI is about to absolutely dismantle everything that we think we know about society as a whole. And I don't think that we are ready for it as a culture, but I don't think the church is ready for it as well. So a couple of things in the article that's pointed out. Here's just 3. Number 1, a white-collar job bloodbath. Many CEOs are already announcing layoffs in white-collar firms because of their adoption of AI. So things like law, accounting, banking, and engineering, it is about to make so many jobs obsolete that we're not even prepared for what that means for a lot of people. Number 2, mental health challenges increase as AI companionship surges. This is crazy. Currently, the number 1 use of AI is companionship and therapy.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
72% of teens use AI companions, and 31% of them say they prefer their AI companion to humans.
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Golly, man. And then number 3, deep fakes are going to erode the line between truth and fiction. So we already live in a post-truth culture, but the rise of AI-generated deepfakes that are imperceptible from reality will fill our feeds more and more. Chances are your social media feed is already jammed with AI slop, and that's only going to intensify. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So what does that mean for us as Christians?
Yeah, it kind of means we need to step up our game. I mean, there's going to be some things that just cannot be outsourced to AI, but a lot of it will be just absolutely co-opted out. I'd say the ministry of presence, of discernment, I would say mediation between people, two different parties that are having a disagreement.
Yeah, I think too, teaching people the difference between having an actual friendship with someone who may disagree with you and push back on you, and who isn't there at all times to answer your text as soon as you text them with the most agreeable answer known to man, right?
Yeah.
So what is that going to do for small group ministries when people are used to an AI companion and then they get across the room with an actual person who doesn't respond to them like an AI companion?
Yeah.
So it's almost as if the greatest threat is not the machines becoming more human, it's the humans becoming more like the machines. And us not remembering how to relate to one another as humans.
Yeah.
And I think AI generated responses too is a big deal. I mentioned earlier, it's like I can tell when somebody sends me something and I know that it's AI generated. And so all of a sudden people that hardly can put cogent sentences together now are scholars in Greek that is justifying their lifestyle. I'm like, how did you figure Greek out that quickly? And you have it perfectly, I'm like, oh, okay. Well, you didn't. It was ChatGPT that did it for you, but thank you for sending me a text acting like you're the one that put it together, and it's like, but I know that's not you.
Yeah.
So it's
at least
it's making us
in there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's making us less able to learn how to objectively synthesize information because the AI tools are doing it for us. Right, so when it comes to analyzing scripture, we're not actually analyzing what's true. We're analyzing what response do I prefer, right? and what's most agreeable to me, because that's what the AI has been giving me, right? So I think we are going to have to learn how to live in a world with AI, but we're going to have to figure out how to shepherd people to live in a world with AI. And if we're not talking about it and thinking about it, or at least being cognizant of the dangers that are there, we're going to be caught with our pants down, proverbially speaking, when it comes to AI. So, strange new world.
Yeah.
Strange new world we're living in. What would you say is the trend that feels most pressing that we've got to figure out?
Wow. Man, that's tough. Probably just polarization, division, fueled by emotions that are further fueled by social media and algorithms. Just the polarization.
Yeah, man.
That's really tough to pull people back from this direction or that direction and bring them back to the middle and say, hey, don't let this get control of your emotions. You're going too far down on that end of the spectrum on this issue. Come back to the middle.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think that the algorithm, discipleship by algorithm, I think is probably the most pressing, because it's the one that you see more than anything else, right? And figuring out, as we continue to preach the gospel, there's going to be some that doesn't jive with what they're seeing on the algorithm. And so they might disengage more than you wish they were. And so that's, it's sad to see, but in some ways I think it's really going to prune the Christian movement down to the people who are seriously seeking truth and those who are just seeking confirmation bias. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Ouch. That'll preach.
Ooh, that'll preach. Well, Gabe, thanks for hanging with me tonight.
Are you going to explain why if you're watching on YouTube, why the background randomly changed in the middle of the podcast?
Yeah. So Gabe and I started recording this over our lunch break today, and my internet crapped out in my office. And so we had to stop and then hop on tonight and finish it up. So that's why it looks like I just time warped and moved from my teleported to my home office. But yeah, thanks for being patient with the technology challenges there, Guy, Chief, Gunner, Tiger, Bud, Sport, Buddy. All right. What else you got going on tonight?
Don't know. I'm going to drink some chamomile tea. You're throwing all these questions on me. You put me on the spot with these questions.
Sleepy time tea.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Sleepy Time Sammy. I hope you get a good rest as you put on your nightcap and your Ebenezer Scrooge pajamas.
Why is that question so funny?
Just imagine you with your little Ebenezer Scrooge nightshirt and your hat and your candle with your
the cat snuggled up in my lap as I stroked the cat's head.
Yes.
Watching the nightly news.
Yes. All right, everybody. Well, thank you guys for tuning in and listening. And if you have any questions, please send us an email, beardsandbiblepodcast@gmail.com. We will see you guys next time.